Hi, this is John from John Radical Talks 561 or 561, whatever you want to say, okay? But anyway, who's here? Who's that mysterious girl saying hi to everybody? Okay, Diana Kouprina. She has like a very interesting story to tell us, something that is kind of, can I say, unique? Huh? Yes,
Unique, sure. Yeah, different,
right. Okay. Okay,
rare.
Diana, don't waste more time. I'm excited to listen your journey because it's kind of a journey in life.
Yeah, it feels like it. It feels like it. I finally feel like I'm nearing the end of it. So hopefully this is it. This is the finish line where I can be free and be free and be free.
It, it sounds like you've been in a cage. Something.
Sometimes it feels like it because I am stateless. And I'll explain that in a second, but it does feel like it. I live in the US and I really don't have any rights. So I can't
Wow.
vote, I can't drive, I can't get on a plane anymore because my mass ID expired and I couldn't get a new one. So it was a huge complicated thing, but very, very limited. So yeah, I'm almost in the cage, but in my town with my family. So it's not too bad. Could be worse.
Can you tell us from the beginning, from what happened in when you were how old were you
So
when
I
you
came to the
immigrated?
US when I was 9 years old.
Wow.
So I've been in the US for the past 30 years. I came to the US legally from the former Soviet Union. My father went to Yale, and that's why we came here under his student F1 visa. And then we remained in the US under his H1B visa. And then my parents applied for adjustment of status. And um, through all of that, I was always legal in the US growing up. I went to private school. I had a very, I guess, an upper middle class type of upbringing. Even if we didn't really fit into the mold, that's where was my home, I guess. So I lived my life. I didn't think of myself even as an immigrant. I didn't really want to.
At the age of 90 years old.
Yeah, so I mean, I moved to the US, lived here legally. I never even
What,
wanted to
what do you
listen.
what do you what do you think when you landed in the United States at 9 years old? That's like a baby. Do you
Yeah,
remember?
so I actually came on my birthday,
Okay.
July 30th, 1993. Yep, my ninth birthday. I left the Moscow airport, um, and I was 9, and then I landed in the US, and I was still 9, and I wanted to celebrate by going to McDonald's. So there's
Oh
that.
boy.
But that's because before we flew out of Moscow, because that's where everyone was allowed to fly from to the US at that point, um, Moscow had opened their very first McDonald's. And I did. I stood in line with my mother. I believe that we waited in line to get into the McDonald's for 2 hours.
That's historic.
Yeah. And
Uh,
so when we came here, I wanted to compare the two. And that is what I remember the most, that before the fear set in, before everything else set in, before I realized I don't even know the language, I don't know anything, and before I realized I'd never see my grandparents again, or that life, or how they lived. None of that obviously processed. All I cared about was comparing the New York McDonald's and the Moscow one. I did think New York City was going to be cleaner when I arrived, but
well, it's New York, okay, but anyway.
well, I was 9, and I was like, oh, United States. I don't know why I had this vision that it's so clean. Like the streets are just sparkling clean, and these old ladies just like scrub them. every evening. So that was my
idea. Yeah, I
that was
think
my
I share
which
the
maybe
same.
that's a combination because it was old women who sweep the streets in the Soviet Union. So I brought that in, I guess, as a
But
perspective.
remember, I'm an immigrant too. Like we have the idea of the United States, like from the magazines, from the newspapers back then, from
Well, from that and just when I was so in 1993, it was the Soviet Union was just falling apart. Um, Perestroika was happening, and all U.S. products flooded um, into the Soviet Union, its former republics, all of it,
I
and
hear
it was
people killing each other for the jeans.
it was a craze. I mean, a Barbie that back then cost 2 months of rent. One
Wow,
Barbie doll.
wow, one Barbie, one little
What do you
doll.
do? You know,
Yeah, but I wanted, and
I did really want my Barbie. Luckily, my grandmother, she owned her apartment, so she did. She saved for half a year, and she did buy me my first Barbie that I brought to the United States with me.
I thought you would say she sold the apartment for the Barbie. I said, wait, that's too much. Okay, sorry. Okay, continue. It's so
A
exciting.
happy little twist, right? I
Yes,
Barbie, yes. Um, yeah, so I moved to the US and I worked very hard on becoming very Americanized. So I never gave a thought about being an immigrant. I just preferred not being one. And I didn't care what that entailed because I was here legally. And that was always such a big distinction that I felt like I even had to make when I discussed the topic. I never even liked discussing it because it just showed that I was different. I didn't want to be different and exotic. I just wanted to be as American as possible.
how did you feel at the beginning at the school, at your neighborhood? Any kind of like uncomfortable moments, probably?
If I could remember all of them, that would be nice.
I get you.
Everything
I
was just
understand at the age of 9. Yeah.
everything's such a blur, and we moved around because we were in New Haven for 1 year, and then we moved to Cambridge. So my year with New Haven and Cambridge is blurred, and that first year I went to Catholic school and public school. Um, and then we moved again, and then I went to public school. But I feel like I assimilated really quickly. I think it's because I was a child, and children they just pick up quickly. I remember my first classroom experience at the Catholic school, and I remember raising my hand because I needed to say I need to go to the bathroom. So I raised my hand. The nun called on me, and in Russian, I said, "Я хочу в туалет." And she just looked at me dumbfounded without understanding what I was saying. And so they had another student who spoke Russian and they found her and they brought her to the classroom and she looked at me and she was actually the first, she was a family friend. And she looked at me and she goes, "Well, what do you need?" I'm like, "I just want to just go to the bathroom." She just looks at a nun and she goes, "She just needs to pee." And everybody's like, "Oh, sorry," and obviously, and that really stuck with me because this whole time while I'm standing there, I'm just thinking, I just hope I don't pee myself on this first day of school. Well, I didn't,
Good.
and then and I studied a lot. I don't know if I had a lot of friends. I was very nerdy. um that was it. I read a lot.
And tell me, when did you realize that your papers from Soviet Unions were less than nothing, just papers? When did you realize that you were a stateless person in America?
uh Not too long ago.
Okay.
Because again, it's not like to say that Soviet Union equals Russian Federation today. I was born in the Soviet Union, but I was born in Georgia, which was a republic or state of this former Soviet Union. So it was the same thing, same government. So I was born this country now, uh, but a state of the Soviet Union, and to a Russian mother and to an Armenian father. So my mother is Russian and my father's Armenian. And then his family also lived in Georgia and then they moved to Armenia. So we traveled back and forth quite often. Again, Armenia was also part of the Soviet Union Republic. Um, there were many of them that made up the Soviet Union, and those were the two that I lived in before coming to the US in 1993. So even when my parents petitioned their paperwork, when my father was filing, the paperwork he tried to always be current with. Not that I had any other passport or anything, but always believing that I'm receiving a green card and eventually I will be receiving a citizenship. I never really gave a second thought of where I'm from, or what the country is, and if one day someone says, "Hey, let's deport you," what do I respond to that? That never crossed my mind.
Plus, there's something we immigrants, once we are here, I mean, in our mentality, immediately we're. I feel American. I mean, I want to be American. I feel American. I want to be an American. That's the
Well,
reason we are here.
yes, 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 and that's it. And also, obviously, I trusted. Again, I will stress this: everything we did was legal, so there was nothing that ever made me think, "Oh no, we're overstaying a visa. Oh no, I'm doing something wrong." That never happened throughout the process from 1993 and up until 2000 when my parents received their permanent residency. And yeah, it took a long time.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
from
the process is
leave
long,
to
but
permanent,
everything was legal.
everything was legal. It's just paperwork. Every year we filed a new file, and every year we received paperwork that allowed us to be legal in the United States of America. And they're known as visas. We were under H-1B. And yeah, we remained on it for a long time. And then again, adjustment of status, as soon as we applied for it, 9/11 was right around the corner. So when 9/11 happened, everything just went crazy. Everything froze. Immigration froze. All our paperwork froze. Um,
Wow.
and yeah, that took us to 2009. So you have to remember that from 1993 to 2009, I'm a child. I'm growing up in the U.S. in a very American
Yeah,
way. I'm going to private school, boarding school, with college on my mind. There's nothing that just being a teenager. Yeah, I rebelled. I made teenage mistakes, but nothing to warrant to say, no, 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 you need to be deported. None of that happened. The only thing I did was marry an American. So I married a US citizen.
okay.
And
What happened with that situation?
well, first of all, I didn't know this, and I probably would have not married if I knew this law. And that is there's when a child arrives into the US with their parents, and even as the process is long, the child, if they reach the age of 21, they're no longer qualified to receive um, their green card with
Partnership
the
from
parents,
them.
they're out age, right? Or if they get married. So I did reach age of 21, but because we did have attorneys working on my paperwork always, they fixed that and said, look, she's been here since 1993. It's not like she came here 20 and in 6 months she turns 21.
But
She,
bureaucracy and the 9/11, like,
and so, yeah, Right. Then so in 9/11, of course. So all of that was exempt. But the one thing that could not be exempt was the fact that I had married a US citizen. And that is one law in immigration where you can't have two petitions at the same time. I was just no longer eligible to receive my green card with my parents. So my parents received their green cards. And because I had just married, I had just said yes, and I had submitted that marriage certificate to USCIS. They sent me a denial and they said, "You're no longer eligible. Please apply with your husband." And I did. I applied with my husband. Unfortunately, we were in a very unhealthy, domestically abusive relationship. And I was so young when I fell into it. And I was very young when I got married. So I believe I was only 24. Um, and it
So
didn't,
you were waiting for more than 20 years. Nothing happened with you. When it's about to happen, you got married, and because you you fell in love, it
yeah,
was because you wanted the paper through the marriage. No, it was because the, the love,
yeah, it
and
was
that's
just love. And it was, this is
everything.
it. The 7 years of living together, college together. That was it. The thing is, yeah, we shouldn't have got married. Yes, I was too young to do that. Yes, it was a foolish thing to do. Yes, it was a very abusive relationship. And yes, there's a whole story with it. But
It's sad.
legally, but legally speaking, none of that had anything to do with immigration. What happened was simple fact that I married a US citizen. And I married July 19th, 2008, and my parents received their green cards August 2008.
Oh my
So
God.
if, what if I had scheduled the wedding, a few months later? What if I'd waited another year before having this wedding?
Will we change everything for you?
Absolutely everything. Well, he didn't come to the interview. He was having an affair. Uh, anyway, it ended badly because he was bad to me. But he didn't come to the interview. So this is where immigration takes really big notice, and this is a red flag. As soon as he didn't come to the interview, they didn't reschedule one. They just basically red flagged me. And because my parents had already received their green cards, there was no longer an application process for all my previous paperwork within USCIS, and they issued me a deportation letter. So I've gone through the deportation proceedings.
From interlegally, file the right papers,
Yes,
wait online,
yes.
landed in the wrong hands, and treated as a like horrible things.
Tried too hard, had too many
Now you have a
applications.
deportation order.
Well, I had it removed.
Okay, nice,
I'm still
nice.
here.
Uh-huh.
That's why I never, obviously, I've always continuously had paperwork.
Good, thanks God.
So the question becomes, I've been documented and undocumented, and theoretically, right now, I believe what USCIS would still call undocumented because I don't have the approval, but I'm waiting for an interview, so I have a legal status of being here.
Nice.
Although, yeah, and so I was finally allowed to apply for my work authorization. So that finally,
I feel so
after
happy for
14
you.
years. So yeah, in 2009, once all that stopped. Before that, I worked. Obviously, I had a right to work. I had all the rights. Um, and then they stopped because I married a US citizen and that paperwork just didn't go through.
Wow. This is a very sad sample of somebody that did everything right, and still the bureaucracy of our country ended up in something like completely a mess. I would like to share this with you and get an opinion on what is going on with our immigration process and etc. etc.
The number of migrants arriving at the southern border is unprecedented. Last year, U.S. Customs and Border Protection reported 2.5 million instances of detaining or turning away people attempting to cross into the United States from Mexico.
Fact is that, look, we should not be locking people up. We should be making sure we change the circumstance as we did, why they would leave in the first place. And those who come seeking asylum, we should immediately have the capacity to absorb them, keep them safe until they can be.
Nobody has any idea where these people are coming from. And we know they come from prisons. We know they come from mental institutions, insane asylums. We know they're terrorists. Nobody has ever seen anything like we're witnessing right now. It is a very sad thing for our country. It's poisoning the blood of our country.
But since the founding of the U.S., immigration has been a central part of the American story and remains so until this day.
Growing fears of a mass migration because of the crisis in Haiti. Authorities are on edge from South Florida to Washington, D.C.
If you come to the United States illegally, you will be returned. Your journey will not succeed, and you will be endangering your life and your family's lives. This administration is committed to developing safe, orderly, and humane pathways for migration, but this is not the way to do it.
Texas, where authorities have started mass deportations from that crowd of 15,000 migrants living in a camp city under a bridge. Now, it's a government effort to deter more migrants from traveling there. That group is mostly Haitian migrants, and already thousands have been deported.
Should someone who is here without documents, and that is his only offense, should that person be deported? That person should not be the focus of deportation. We should fundamentally change the way we deal with them.
I'll solve the border problems within 24 hours of taking office.
Echoing campaign promises from his first run for the White House, former President Donald Trump has vowed to crack down on immigration again if he's elected to a second term in office.
It's so bad, and people are coming in with disease. People are coming in with every possible thing. Got a lot of work to do. You know, when they let, I think the real number is 15, 16 million people into our country. When they do that, we got a lot of work to do. They're poisoning the blood of our country. That's what they've done. They poison mental institutions and prisons all over the world, not just in South America, not just the 3 or 4 countries that we think about.
So what's the fastest growing group among them? Chinese migrants. Yes, we heard that right, Chinese. We saw large groups, including many from the middle class, come through a 4-foot gap at the end of a border fence 60 miles east of San Diego. Migrants make their way from Mexico through a gap between the 30-foot steel border fence and rocks.
Okay, I know there's a lot of information right there, but
No, that was like a good snippet that covers basically what
the whole thing.
the politicians usually argue about every 4 years, and it just goes back and forth and back and forth, and it's just throwing a ball and saying they're doing it wrong and they're doing it wrong, and
no fix at all, nothing, just
Right.
bureaucracy. What do you think about Diana?
well, because obviously someone's making money somewhere,
Yeah, that's true.
and usually that makes everything kind of go round. And second of all, I mean, I think that U.S. immigration needs to completely reevaluate itself, figure out how they want to operate, restructure as a business, you know, go to the root of the problem and fix it.
I think, you know,
But
it's
while
more
they're
politician.
doing that, the thing is, while they're doing that, they can't even have the borders open because they need that manpower. You know, the U.S. Imagine if U.S. actually closed their borders for everybody, and not forever, but until they really started fixing the problem with immigrants here. And half the people don't even know who's legal and who's illegal.
Till
I don't even know, and I don't even know what distinguishes it. I remember when I arrived in the US in 1993, okay, I had the idea that legal, I came here legally, I'm legal. Nobody can ever take that away from me.
exactly, exactly. The same thing. Personally, I'm applying for my daughters, and everything is stopped because the South Board is totally collapsed, and we are waiting and waiting and waiting. But it's like, okay, let's wait. What to do? But it's not fair. People try to do
Oh,
the right
that's
things.
the other problem because the wait issues are so long. And why are they so long? Obviously, there's not enough immigration officers. There's not enough who can review cases. There's many more who come in than there's manpower to read those cases. I mean, they say criminal courts are backed up. I say immigration courts are probably double that, triple that, 10 times that.
I always say something. If because we need immigration, this country is big, great, amazing because immigration. But they never treat the system in the right way. They never
No,
fix. If you said, okay, we don't have enough officers to process the documentation, hey, hiring more people maybe can fix the situation. Who knows? But
imagine if they
politically,
actually hired immigrants. Let's say you have your work authorization paper, you know how the process works, you know what you're looking for. Those are probably the best employees you're going to get who are
yes,
going
yes, we come here to prove
to
ourselves
look for it.
the best.
Right. The best. Again, it has to happen internally because what's been happening politically, if you really look at it, is that issues arise, and then to include everybody in this immigration debate and to be equal to all countries, um, Democrats like to slap on this band-aid and said, well, we're being inclusive. But when it comes to, you can't be inclusive and have it be equal for everybody. It just doesn't work that way.
No, USA is not a pizza. You don't have to make everybody happy. I mean,
Exactly.
Has to be filters, have to be something. But
Right. So then the laws really need to cater and how they're created. I never understood what was going on at the border. I still don't understand what happens at the border. And why is it happening? So I don't know. We can blame the Clinton administration, or people should really advocate to understanding immigration laws and finding ways on
try to fix it.
really fixing the root of the problem, not covering it up, not inviting more asylum seekers into the country without properly having a proper border law. How can you? But then you're going to be complaining of what everyone's complaining now and saying, well, they're robbing places, or they're criminals. Well, first of all, let's put it this way. I would imagine that a criminal will probably have all of their paperwork much more in order than somebody who actually is seeking asylum and refuge. And I wonder if that is even taken into account. Or is it just, oh, you have the paperwork, or you know what to say, okay, you go this way, there you go in. And you go in, and then who knows when your asylum interview is going to be. So you're in the country for how long? 10, 20 years? You could be 30 years.
Well, it's a mess. We are in a political year, election year. It's
Yeah,
like
that's when, that's when immigration becomes this hot topic. It's always in those
elections crazy year.
yeah, yes.
But anyway, Diana, I wish you the best, and I know you wanna get it, and I will be so happy to celebrate along with you that moment when you get your
I'll be so happy.
the things that you deserve.
And I'll be so proud because actually, this is the one application I did myself. So no attorneys. I learned the legal language. I learned it all. I felt like I was writing my legal dissertation. Very proud of it. It was an 80-page book. Yeah, it's like a second baby or something. It's like, this is it. This is it.
I feel proud of to meet you. Like what was like 5, 6 months ago, and
Yeah,
now we are doing podcast. And as a joke, but it's true. I bought these lips to match your lips,
I
and
love
this was a pleasure to have this.
Well, thank you so much. And I'm always happy to do it again. And I'm always happy to have you on my podcast as well.
Thank you. I really appreciate. And this was John from John Radical Talks 561 o 561, como lo quiera decir. But thank you and have a good day. Bye
Have
bye.
a good day or good night or good morning.
Yeah, whatever. Bye bye.